because there's been lots of sun cream floating about. Everyone's sort of sitting cool in the shade because it really is a scorcher and it's supposed to be hotter tomorrow. So we're on the start now. You join us with the next event on the course, which is a heat of the junior double sculls. Now these guys actually time trialled this morning, so this will be their second race today. None of these crews will have had side-by-sides yet, so first bit of a taste of side-by-side for these junior double sculls. The crews that we've got on the start line lining up now are Becket Rowing Club on the Berkshire station and King's Ely on the Buckinghamshire station. So we're off the start of race 145. This is, as I say, the first of the heats from the junior double sculls between Becket Rowing Club on the Berkshire station and King's Ely on the Buckinghamshire station. And you'll be able to see the umpire there, just giving a bit of a steering warning to the crew from King's School Ely. Tricky in these double sculls sometimes to get your line right with no rudder, no nothing. It's all purely being done off the sort of pressure steering from the junior athletes in these crews, and it seems to me from the viewpoint that we've got at the moment that it's the crew Becket Rowing Club on the right hand side of your picture there that's got a little bit of a lead over the crew from King's Ely.
So is that? Yeah, so as they are approaching our commentary point, it is the Becket crew that have taken an early lead, as you can see, and have gone out by about 2 lengths already. At this stage in the regatta, they will want to get that lead and then just sit back on it and control the race and watch King's Ely and just be able to respond to anything that King's Ely might put up. But certainly it is Becket. Their steering may need to get a little bit better as they move through the courses, but they're certainly not impeding King's Ely there. The water is theirs, and they're looking very comfortable. 2 very tall scullers with a long reach, and sculling very, very well. Sometimes, actually, when you've got this lead, it can be a bit disconcerting if it's not something that you expected. And you do need to watch your blade work if you don't want to relax too much, because it just takes one bad stroke for you to be close to the booms and in all sorts of trouble. But as you can see there, they're very well in control, and King's Ely will need to react now if they're going to become involved in this race. But it's Becket right in the middle of the course. As I said, the water is theirs, and they've even taken it down now. They're well in control, and what a beautiful sight that the drone is giving us there of Henley Women's Regatta, which is being really well supported there by friends, rowing aficionados and family. And it's a beautiful day. So if you are watching this on the webcast and you are within 5 miles of this place, you're being very naughty.
Absolutely.
Get down here. The sun is shining. I've even got some sun cream on and a hat to protect my age. I have less hair than I would like on my head, but it's absolutely beautiful there. And we're seeing just what a stunning course the Henley course is.
Absolutely, and these, we've got lots of these junior double sculls coming up over the course of the next half an hour or so. As I mentioned earlier, this will be the first race for all of these guys side by side, and they've got a beautiful day for it. And I think that with some of these junior double sculls, it might be the first time that they've raced at this regatta, certainly. We've got a big contingent of junior races actually over the course of the next 2 hours or so. We've got sort of the junior quads and singles who all time trialled this morning, all with races for progression between now and 3 o'clock. And it's still this crew from Becket Rowing Club, a very strong double scull that they've produced here, that are just taking their time now. They've got plenty of racing to do. It's a very well contested event, the junior double sculls, with a very big time trial as well. Actually, quite a lot of these double sculls took place in that time trial this morning. So it'll be interesting to see who's strong out of these heats, and we'll be keeping an eye across the course of all the ones that we've got coming up. And the next one's actually just off the start, and that's between Marlow Rowing Club on the Berkshire Station and Warrington Rowing Club, who are the current holders of the title in this junior double sculls event, who are currently being led off the start by Marlow Rowing Club.
So Marlow Rowing Club did well at National Schools Regatta, and I must just say it's lovely to see Becket School here. We've not seen too much of them before, but they were really strong at National Schools Regatta, and it's great to see these new clubs coming through. But that's a great view that you can see there. It is Marlow leading there, and they've taken a length, 2 lengths already just past the island, and they're looking just to really, they've made the transition from their start. They're into their racing rhythm, and as you can see, there's a great shot there. They're about 2 lengths ahead already, and so the crew on the far side will need to respond pretty quickly if they're going to get involved in this race.
Absolutely, and I think we've always seen strong junior women's scullers from Warrington. Yeah. And it is surprising me that they're being led by such a strong Marlow Rowing Club crew. And this Marlow crew, again, Marlow have done well at all of the junior women's events across the course of the last 2 years. I'd say they've really come into their own and produced good quadruple sculls, Henley Royal Regatta at National Schools. Yeah. And I think this double is probably sort of a testament to the programme that they've created, and I think probably the product that's coming out of the other end of a good step up that they've made. And it'll be the winner of this race will go on to face Becket, who we saw in the previous race doing very well. And Marlow were absolutely dominant in the time trial this morning that I was commentating on. They were first off the blocks in the time trial and just created a huge gap between themselves and the rest of the field. So I think they're certainly going to be ones to watch.
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt. And there's such a great coaching setup at Marlow. And all of these people, you see the guy in red He's certainly not coaching from the side. God forbid that he would be doing that, but he's just following them. And these are all volunteers, and they put their heart and soul into the clubs all the way around the UK. And the athletes get the benefit from this. And you know, as we were told, that Warrington Rowing Club has had a real resurgence in the last 5 years. Probably their top junior athlete at the moment, most people know, is Lucy Glover, who's doing wonderfully well in the junior setup, and probably actually attracting other people in to the club.
So a very dominant performance there, still by Marlow Rowing Club. And this is the second of 8 heats that we've got in the junior double sculls.
And if you look at the technique of these athletes, are just tremendous. I mean, I know that we're looking there at a crew that's relaxed. They know that they've got lots of distance between them and the following crew. But the technique of these junior scullers is just superb. And again, I go back to the coaches and the way that coaching has improved in British rowing over the last 10 years. Look at that fine sight of 2 excellent athletes sculling extremely well. The depth of blade going in the water just about perfect. They're not missing very much water, if any, and the catches are pretty sharp as well. So, as you were saying, this has got to be one of the favourites for this event. If this is what we're looking at, and they're relaxed whilst doing that. And what we're pretty excited for, because any minute now, we're going to get a fly past, which is incredibly exciting. And I'm going to tell you now, if you live anywhere near, the noise of what you're about to hear is going to be tremendous. That throaty roar of the engines, the flight engines, will be coming around within the next 4 minutes.
So just to wrap up on a few results from this afternoon's racing, race 137 was a win in the junior fours for Becket School by a length and a half. 138 was a win for Henley Rowing Club by 2.5 lengths. Race 139, a win for Marlow Rowing Club by 3.5 lengths. Race 140 was a row over of St George's College. 141 was a win for St Andrew Boat Club by 2 lengths.
So on the start there you can see our next race is ready to go. Nottingham Rowing Club against the Swiss double, and the Swiss double is just, we're waiting to see the Swiss double there. But as I said, we've got the in 2 or 3 minutes we've got the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, which will be coming over. and this has been going now for a number of years. Started by Wing Commander Peter Thompson, who was then the station commander at Biggin Hill in Kent, and he was primarily responsible for that, and he's a pretty interesting chap. He gained his pilot's wings in the summer of 1940 and flew Hurricanes during the Battle of Britain. And actually, as some of you will know, that by the mid-1950s, the Hurricane was probably the only airworthy representative of its type within the RAF, and was placed there at Biggin Hill. And that gave Peter, at that time, the basis for this wonderful grander plan. So some of you who are listening to this will be hearing them already, I'm absolutely sure. By 1957, there are only three, this is hard to believe, there are only three remaining airworthy Spitfires available to the RAF. And since then, Peter and the rest of his group have worked hard to maintain the legacy of those flights in the First World War. And see this Battle of Britain Memorial flight. We are so fortunate at Women's Henley here to have this fly path.
So just whilst we're waiting a little bit, some more results. So race 142, that was the last round of the Junior Cox Fours as they win for St Paul's School USA by 3 lengths. Race 143, Senior 8s, was a win for Newcastle University by 2 lengths. Race 144 in Senior 8s was a win for Northeastern University easily.
And there you are. I hope you can hear it. We've got two wonderful, wonderful planes just going over. Look at that. Isn't that just the most marvellous sight? And you know, when you're as old as I am and have been to as many remembrance services as I am, any image like that just brings it back to mind what some of those people so long ago now, it seems, gave up so that we can live the lives that we do. And we must never, ever forget that. I don't know, it's pretty exciting when you're rowing, and the adrenaline will be going for sure in the Nottingham and the Swiss double there, but what it must have been like for those young pilots during the war to get up in those planes and taxi off going to whatever they didn't know what they were going to. Just fantastic. And thank you very, very much, the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, for coming around to us today. We really do appreciate the fact that you are still there and able to do stuff like that. Listen to that throaty roar. Absolutely magnificent. Just wonderful. And what a way, if you're sitting on the start now, what an introduction to your race to have those two aeroplanes just go over, and they're just showing off a little bit now. As you can see, they're just showing how
Look at that
they can be flown. Look at that wonderfully tight circle.
That's just gone all the way over the heads of the crowds.
Absolutely wonderful. Now, I don't know, I'm not really into my planes, so apologies, but it looks to me that that's a Hurricane.
I think I heard it mentioned that it was a Hurricane earlier, actually.
That we're looking at there, and just absolutely brilliant. So if the pulses weren't racing at the start in these two crews, they certainly will be now. So it's crew number 289 on the Berkshire station there, Nottingham Rowing Club, and 293 is
Veyrier.
Thank you, Veyrier.
I saw them in their time trial this morning, and I believe I'm having a go at the pronunciation, but Veyrier Rowing Club of Switzerland. So a little bit more adjustment there from the Nottingham crew. So this race due to be going off any second now.
And a thank you, actually, whilst we're watching this, to our volunteers around the regatta. There's lots of people here who have given up their Friday, Saturday and Sunday just to help out. And let me tell you now, those guys who are prostrate, just holding on to the boats there, that's not an easy job to do, and particularly it's not too bad today because there's little wind, but they've really got to be careful. They've got to be quite still. The start, as those of you involved in rowing will know, is so important, and they've just got to just guide the boat and get it inch perfect. So thank you to you guys. You won't hear this, but I hope someone does say that we do recognise what you're doing. So imagine the nerves. I mean, you've been on the start, something like this.
Absolutely.
Heart rate is increasing.
But we're better than, you know, at the top of Temple Island, the Henley Regatta's course, just staring down that perfectly straight, you know, 2 and a bit kilometres as it would be for sort of the full set of booms, but just to get that view of Henley Town and the church and everything.
Which you never see, of course.
Which you never see,
facing the wrong way.
But I mean, certainly, you know, the Nottingham Val girl there, just taking a bit of a glance around, she'll have seen it. So, it, although nerve-wracking, a sort of sense of almost, you know, awe on the start line as well, to even get to the start line of such an event.
And that first 150 metres, actually, if you're steering, is some of the more difficult.
Oh, and especially I would say, certainly, well, on both sides, but I feel for the crew on the Berkshire station because you get swept into the bank, and there's this, you know, you won't be able to see it from where we are right now, but when the camera pans round, there's a set of buoys that sort of guide you on the straightest line, and if you don't stick to that set of buoys, you could be getting splintered by a rather large pole of wood, very similar to the one that you're seeing at the front of the camera now. They're sort of stationed all the way down the course, and they hurt a lot, apparently, if you row into them. So
they do, they absolutely do. Not that I've ever done that.
No, neither have I, but I've seen it happen, and it's...
But one of our fellow commentators has, and he can attest that it is pretty painful. I've been very sensible because I've never sculled or rowed in boats that you have to steer yourself, because that to me is really silly. Well, what you need is someone else to do that for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's people like you, isn't it, who scull, that can do both things.
Well,
I can only pull hard, pull harder. All this technical nonsense, that's rubbish. Just pull harder.
Oh, and you know,
steering, what's that about?
I've been sat on the start line here in a sort of quadruple scull where I've been stroking and steering, and it's been terrifying. But
look at that.
There
Brilliant.
We go. We're off
well
to start
done,
now.
both crews.
So, looks like a nice clean start for both crews. The Nottingham Rowing Club crew, maybe perhaps not just following that buoy line, as we were discussing earlier, and just drifting off into the centre, but they have had the better start. So, I think if they were to sort of drift back over to their side of the river now, we'll certainly start to see that I think they've probably gained about a length and a quarter, perhaps, from that little bit of a punchier start that they've had.
It was a real punchy start, wasn't it? It's so important, these starts now, and they've just transitioned now, and as you could just see the bow athlete looking over, because if you get a chance to come down and have a look at the start, it's really interesting because there's a bay there which throws a lot of people off because they steer towards this expanse of water, and actually that's not the buoy line. But the umpire seems, well, are umpires ever happy? They're not really ever happy, but he looks content with the steering of those athletes there.
So the crew from Nottingham Rowing Club, the Brits in this event, I suppose, and the Swiss on the far side of your picture there on the left. Nottingham Rowing Club.
Or should we be saying Europeans still?
Well,
both Europeans.
Both European crews, of course, but...
we can still say that, can't we?
We can still say that, I think, just about. Well, look at that. They've managed to open up quite some lead over the crew from Veyrier in Switzerland. Nottingham Rowing Club, I'd say, always produce very strong junior women, very similar to what we were saying about some of the clubs earlier who are almost renowned, I suppose, really for a good junior programme. I'd say Nottingham's probably one of those on the club rowing side rather than the school rowing side. They obviously train at the National Water Sports Centre and have a very good piece of 2-kilometre Olympic standard rowing lake in front of them when it's not blowing a gale, but they are clearly very used to racing side by side against some of their club mates, and very used to this sort of environment.
And they've got that beautiful river right next to it, haven't they? The Trent, which they will use a lot. So they are used to a bit of flowing river as well, not just the home pier point. But they've really already, Camilla, they've taken down their rating, haven't they? They've done the hard bit as far as they're concerned. They're in control. They've got, 4 lengths up, I would say now, and they're going to enjoy this now because they're not going to expend much energy. They're being really sensible. They're sculling nice and long. The power's still going through, but they've allowed the Swiss crew to come back. But that's absolutely what they're planning.
Well,
because they want to keep their energy, don't they?
And if they go through this round, which by the looks of things at this point in time, I would say would be a sensible guess, they will have a race again later on today as well. So it's not just that they've got to rest up for tomorrow. They've got a race at 5 o'clock this afternoon that they need to recover for. So every piece of energy that they can conserve through this middle part of the race is utterly, utterly important if they've got a hard race coming up.
And so sensible. And because we're a little late now, the next race has gone off the start, and you might know a little bit about this. Wallingford Rowing Club, just up the road or up the river from us, and again another one of these marvellous local clubs that we have around this area of the Thames, and they're against Oxford City A, even further up the Thames there, and it looks like Oxford City A took the lead through Temple Island, but they haven't actually broken Wallingford in a way that we've seen the doubles before that.
A much closer race here towards the sort of middle of the draw, and City of Oxford pushing hard, but still, I think Wallingford may just about have, about a quarter of a length clear water back on City of Oxford. So it's not unattainable by any means, and as they come past us here at the commentary point, I think it's actually Wallingford who certainly look to be sculling much tidier, but City of Oxford looking very strong. So I think this is going to be very much a sort of technique over pure force sort of race, or vice versa.
So it's interesting in national schools that these two boats were pretty close, actually, both through the time trial at national schools, and then into the semis of the double event. So they ought to be fairly close.
And having raced each other before, they've got the measure of each other from national schools, as you say, back in May. Lots of time for tweaks, for improvements. It was City of Oxford that trumped them, I think, at national schools over Wallingford. But Wallingford still holding their own, and I don't think that gap again has grown very much as they head into this middle part of the race. As both crews have settled, I think that distance remains relatively similar. And as pointed out, actually, the winner of this race is going to face the crew in your bottom half of the screen. So that looks to be Nottingham Rowing Club. So you've actually got what could potentially be the two crews that will be racing each other in the next round, both on the screen at the moment.
Yeah.
And actually, we're off the start on the next race, so they're coming thick and fast now. I think we've got 3 races on the course all at once, so this will test us a little bit. This is the B crew from City of Oxford on the... you can't actually see the B crew from the City of Oxford crew. There they are, on the left-hand side of your picture now. And on the right-hand side, you've got Emmanuel School. So, and a bit of a clip on the boy line there for the crew from City of Oxford. What a shame off the start.
Just exactly what we were talking about.
Well, and
you get dragged into that bay.
And Emmanuel School are going to have to watch out as well, because they're drifting now to try and accommodate for City of Oxford coming back into the picture. And they're going to have to watch themselves on the booms. So, a test of steering for this particular heat, certainly.
And still, and you can see that the umpire is going to have to get involved, I would imagine, but we haven't seen much.
A big adjustment there, I think, from the B crew from City of Oxford.
And that will, of course, cost them dearly, won't it? Both in, their pulse rate will have gone up, they'd have their sculling would have got knocked about. And now they've got to just, and you can see they're wobbling about. They're not just back, really ready to go. I don't think, and that's meant that Emmanuel School have been able to take that long lead.
And they've certainly capitalised on that. I think they've stayed calm. They're I'd say probably rating a little bit higher than they probably would be at this point in the race to try and just, use the mishap in the City of Oxford boat just to push ahead so that they've got enough distance to then settle it back later on in the race. And, such a shame for that City of Oxford crew because, you practice week in, week out that sort of first couple of minutes off the start and getting into a rhythm, and that would have been so heavily disrupted by that bit of a clip that they had and then steering adjustment therefore after. So, but we can't sort of discount how nicely this double scull from Emmanuel are getting on because, credit to them, they've kept their heads, they've not let the other crew's mishap fluster them, and they've just started to scull into the middle of the water there, just to sort of, I guess ruffle a few feathers and demonstrate that they're the leading crew. And, I think certainly we'll see them start to maybe take the rating down a little bit as they come through that central part of the race. Again, as we said earlier, if you win a race, you're back in it later again today. So I think it would be silly of them to push on from here. I'd certainly be saying that if I was their coach. If you get so far up, don't go wild, just hold it and save your energy.
And that's exactly what is happening here, as we can see. And they were off again, aren't we?
Yes,
Tideway
off again.
School.
Yeah, so we're off Tideway School A on the right-hand side of your picture there, and Shrewsbury School on the left-hand side of your picture.
And it's Tideway Scullers, as we look at that, who've gone really fast off the start. Rating, I'd say 2 pips ahead of Shrewsbury at the moment. And again, just as you were saying, Camilla, they're trying to get that lead to enable them to sit back, to preserve, to conserve the energy. So Shrewsbury are going to have to come up. So what are they up at? 34, 35, and Shrewsbury just below that, I would say. But they are probably taller athletes. Looking at the Shrewsbury double.
Yeah, so Shrewsbury just settling there to about rate 33, so you're absolutely right. I think they are probably a little bit longer than the crew from Tideway Scullers, but Tideway Scullers keeping it up nice and high in this first couple of minutes of the race. And again, I think what most crews tend to do in these early rounds is race it to a point where they're comfortable and whatever their race plan is, they'll say, look, we'll practice this, we'll make sure we race it hard to X number of metres, 400 metres, 500 metres, and then see where we're at from there. And if we can start to strip it back, we absolutely will. And we've seen that in every single race so far, pretty much in this double sculls event. So, and again, smaller boats, takes longer to complete the course. It's singles as well. It is sort of very taxing because it takes that much longer to complete the 1,500 metres, and if you can...
Well, that's why. Why would you go in a double when you can go in an 8 when you've got 7 other mates to help you pull? I have this argument all the time with the scullers. You have to be mentally hard, physically hard to be, a single sculler and a double sculler, and you can, if you're anything like me, be a bit lazier in an 8. Would that be true, do you think?
I don't know, but I mean...
Tell me, 8s are lazier than scullers. What do you reckon, Camille?
No, absolutely not. I think each boat has their own perks and their own... I mean, 8, the distances that you can win... You'd never see this sort of lead in an 8, really, to be honest. Whereas...
In my dreams I do. I see Shipwreck about 4 lengths ahead by this stage. In my dreams.
In your dreams.
Almost every night, actually.
And I just think that the sort of contribution that you make in these smaller boats, it's far more telling, certainly, and far more onerous on you as an athlete in these singles and doubles and pairs. There is nowhere to hide.
Nowhere.
And that, as you say, it can be quite scary, and you can run away screaming and say, well, I don't really like this very much. But also, when you have such a euphorious win like that, you can say, well, actually, that was down to me. And you know, you're 50% of that crew, and that win is very much your race. And that's why single scullers, I suppose, single scullers are mad. I do not understand the mentality of these people who come to these things and race in singles. You know, credit to them. But, you know, it is kind of that little bit more satisfying, maybe, to have that much of a part of a win in a race.
Yeah, I can understand that, and you know, the sense of teamwork in this double scull must be huge. Because it's just two of you, and you've got to hit the water at the same time. You've got to come out the water at the same time. You've got to go up the slide at the same time, and if you don't, you know, you're putting a brake on the boat. And this is what I keep saying, that the standard of junior sculling in the UK, I think, is brilliant. And I've watched a lot of American rowing, and maybe I'm wrong, but you know, I just think the UK sculling, you know, hats off to all the coaches who are doing that. So we're off the start again.
So this is the penultimate. With third from last. No, it is the penultimate race in this junior double sculls sort of first round. This is race 151 between Bullbridge and Reading Rowing Club, and you've got Reading Rowing Club on the right hand side of your picture there, and Bullbridge on the left hand side. And I think this is a little bit more matched, actually. I think Bullbridge potentially just got the better of Reading there in the first couple of 100 metres, and they'll be coming into view in our commentary cabin very soon. But it's very early days yet, and actually this is much closer than any heat that we've seen go off this start line so far.
It is, and this is what neither team will want, of course, is a big race at this early stage. But that's exactly what we've got there. I mean, just transitioned relatively there, and it looks like Reading. Does it? It's so close, but Reading just a wee bit.
Yeah, I think Bullbridge were ahead off the start, certainly, but as they come into view there, you can just see how close they are, and we'll give you a bit of an update from, you know, our position in commentary here. We're probably sat, about 500 metres into this race, and as you can see from the drone there, we're absolutely stroke for stroke, and what a privilege to be commentating on a race like this.
Absolutely wonderful. Well, you were talking about clubs that are really pushing on, and Reading Rowing Club is exactly one of those. We've seen some wonderful junior athletes coming out of Reading.
I think Reading actually won the junior single scull last year, so again, a really hard event for them to do and to win. And I don't know whether, you know, that same athlete will be in this double scull. I'm actually not sure. That's something that we can check, but that's pushed on the standard of the rest of the club.
No, I think this is going to be an interesting race, because Bullbridge are not letting them get away, are they? And Reading have put another push in just there, and Bullbridge Bowman had a little look over, and they've responded as well. So they're not letting them go, and they're really coming back.
So we've got Reading Rowing Club still up at sort of rate 35, which is quite high still in a double scull in these small boats. At this point in the race, you'll have expected, you know, 500 metres to have settled down at least a little bit. But I think the sort of pressure of Bullbridge just over the stern of their boat there. Look, they've only just managed to break contact, and Bullbridge still scrapping to get the overlap back, really not letting them out of their sight. And these are the best races, I think, although, as you say, not one that you'd want first race off the blocks on a side-by-side after a time trial. I don't know.
And actually, we should compliment the steering here as well. I mean, it looks easy from that position to do this. It looks nice and wide. It's actually not. So both crews steering now really well. But the Reading have not, well, they've cut the cord, as it were, but they've just not dominated yet, have they?
And I think until, I know obviously a lot of people talk about this cutting the cord as sort of breaking that level of overlap, but I think actually until you've got about a half a length of clear water, you can still tell that that other crew are there, and a good mounted sprint, especially again in the smaller boats, the change of speed is so much easier to make. It's so much easier to say, right, actually, we're going to switch the burners on now, and the boat responds so much more quickly than it does in a big boat. So, and that's the next race. This is the final race in this junior double sculls heat between Llandaff on the near side of your picture there, and Godolphin and Latimer School on the far side. And Llandaff, the early leaders at this stage in the race, they've probably opened up about a length and a quarter over the crew from Godolphin on the far side there in red.
So Llandaff made the semi-finals of the Championship Girls Double Sculls at the National Schools Regatta, and didn't quite make it through to the final. But nevertheless, you know, the standard of that championship double would have been tremendous. So you can see that they are very, very fine scullers as they pass our commentary point, and Godolphin are really not giving up. They're pushing on. But what we've seen now is, of course, the bowman has lost the sight of Llandaff in the peripheral vision, and that's always that just makes you sink a little bit.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, Llandaff obviously very strong on the Welsh rowing scene. I'd say probably one of the strongest club rowing programmes in Wales. They do come across the border to a lot of domestic regattas in sort of the Midlands and so on and so forth. And again, on the national stage, as you just said, at national schools, making semi-finals and punching at that level at this sort of championship junior level. You know, this is anybody under the age of 18. Is really impressive. But I think this race isn't quite over yet, although in saying that, actually, having looked at the rating from Llandaff, I think they might have taken it down a little bit, which has given the impression that Godolphin are coming back. So I'd say probably Llandaff conserving a bit of energy, and we'll have to bring you updates, and you'll be able to follow that race there on the top of your screen, just to see if anything dramatically changes. And you'll join us now for the first of the junior quadruple sculls heats.